Hello, guys, and welcome to my new episode. So, it's been a long time since we hang out last time, um, but now I'm back and I'm so excited to be here with you again. So, May was quite a tough month for people in my country. We had a lot of things going on, and it kind of took a toll on all of us. But I think that another thing, and that's exactly why I chose to do this episode, even though it's not like part of the standard plan, of the original plan, um, is the fact that all those things, you know, mostly negative things and all that, chaos really caused me to lose my motivation to do anything. So it's not a new thing for me. I think it's not a new thing for anyone. It's very easy to lose motivation in any sense or when it comes to any area of life. And I'm not the exception. I also lose motivation every day, and it's honestly a very challenging thing. So I think it's something that most people can relate to, and I definitely think that most people have been in a situation where they felt so exciting about, starting something new or coming back and doing something they've already, done in the past. And then after a week or two, it just kind of vanished and they were left with all those things they started, but, with no energy to do it. So that's why I chose that today's topic and what I would like to talk about today is motivation. So I would like to begin with what, in my opinion, is motivation, or at least how I see it. So I just want to kind of state before we move on that I'm not like a therapist or psychologist or any of those. I'm a regular person who struggles with a load of different things, including motivation and discipline and everything else. So everything I will be saying in this episode is entirely my personal view. So it has nothing to do with like um, official literature or whatever it is. So, like I said, I would like to start with saying what motivation represents for me in the first place. So, how I see motivation. For me, motivation is something like a spark. Okay, so you may see a movie or hear a song or listen to a podcast or watch a show or any of those. Okay, you may meet someone new or hear some story and you think, oh my god, like look at him or look at her, they did so much out of nothing. Maybe I could do it as well. All right, we all been there. We know the feeling. A lot of things, a lot of emotion kind of arises, and we feel all of it, and we need to do something with it. We feel like we need to use this energy to create something because we really want to do it, and there is this passion we feel, and all those different things, which, like I've said, usually comes, after we hear something inspirational or we meet some people who inspire us and things like those. So that very moment when that need, like strong urge to do something with our skills and abilities and our time and well everything else comes up, that's a moment that I call the spark. Okay, so we have this spark, and that spark is there. Okay, so for me, that's motivation. Now, what happens with sparks usually? So when we try to, you know, light up the lighter, we have the spark, but it's gone after, I mean, not after a while, it's gone after a few seconds. Well, the same thing in my case happens with motivation. I think in most people's case. So, we have this kind of like small spark, and then we move into a process, we jump into a process of doing something, and then that spark becomes slightly stronger. Okay, maybe it even becomes like a small flame. All right, but then after that first, the first effect of that motivation kind of becomes smaller, you start dealing with all the problems that kind of expected to arise, like, I don't know, um, external factors, or just, busy schedule, or not enough energy, or whatever it is. You deal with some sort of problems. It all depends on which thing you focused and which thing you started. So at that moment, I picture all those problems, whether it's my own, you know, level of energy, or it's just like support system, or the lack of one, or just the economy, or whatever. I imagine all of it like a huge wave. Okay, so now we have this spark, which might be like a small flame, and then you have this huge wave that just arrives and like destroys that spark completely. Okay, and then we lose motivation. So in practice, it usually happens when you start doing something, you start a project, or you try something new, and then, for example, you take up some English lesson, and then you get in a classroom, it becomes too hard, or you don't know something, you perhaps feel, ashamed for not knowing something, or too shy to speak, and it doesn't go as you imagined in your head while you were so like high on those emotions that were, arose by the feeling of motivation. And when you realize all those different things, such as, feeling of um, feeling shy, or just feeling of being inadequate or not good enough, it kind of really destroys all the, all that high that you began with. So at that moment, as practice usually says, what happens? It happens the following. So people just give up, me included. It becomes too difficult. I don't feel good anymore. I feel not even not good, I feel bad. you know it's not going well, and it makes me feel bad. It brings all those emotions that I really don't want to deal with. So why should I keep doing it, right? um and then you just kind of go, okay, that's probably not for me, I'm just going to move on. Well, that's the thing. So it's, I have this problem where I really, really, I mean, I really understand that it's rooted in perfectionism and everything else, but I have this problem where I really feel like I should um, be really good at something before I start doing that something, because if I don't, or at least I'm not good enough to start something, I know it doesn't make sense, but in my head it does, then I shouldn't even go there because I'll be completely inadequate. Okay, so it's really easy for me to lose motivation. But the thing that it's very important to do at that point, and it's something that I still struggle with, but I'm doing my best to fix it, is to really kind of take a step back and see things, um, kind of very objectively. Okay, so you look at the, state of things, right? So we have, a new person in a group. You're that new person in group. First, you don't know the dynamic of group. You know no one in that group, so it's a very much new environment, which itself arises many sort of, you know um, kind of conflicting emotions, very, different emotions. You're excited, but you're sort of scared, and depending on your personality, one of those two will really, kind of will become stronger than the other one. So you need to, I mean, that's what I do. I kind of step back and see, okay, so let's see objectively what's happening here, because internally I'm just freaking out and I really want to run away from this. So I can't know something. I'm taking up these lessons because I didn't know it, right? Why should I pay for something I know? So first, it's very much normal and expected for me not to know whatever it is. Okay, it's normal for me to feel scared and, I don't know, nervous and anxious, because I'm supposed to integrate in a new environment which I'm not probably very comfortable with, especially if, you have social anxiety, or you perhaps be an introvert or one of those. So naturally for you, it's really hard to integrate into a new group. So in this case, it becomes even more pronounced. And then, you really, it's very important, at least in my case, to be very compassionate with yourself and not to like jump to, conclusion that you should just give it up, you're not good enough, and everything else. So you just take a pause and like think, okay, so now we have this situation, but is it permanent or can I actually do something to change it? That's the first one. And the second one that I do is let's just think how much, if it's not me, if it's someone else, how much time would I give that someone, okay, to adapt to it and to actually start becoming successful and comfortable with it. In this case, with taking new lessons in a new group or whatever it is. Okay, so I think that, approaching things from slight distance, when you kind of tame your emotions a bit and then just try to see things as they really are, it's very important for preserving that little spark, not to like, distinguish completely. Because there are a load of water around us. And, in the beginning, it's very natural that we won't, have this huge fire that can't be turned down, put down. Um, and that's why it's important to just preserve this little thing, to keep ourselves reminded of why we started it in the first place and be gentle enough with us to realize that it takes time to see results, especially if you're just starting. Okay, so another thing, that I would like to address is what happens with that motivation. Okay, so if motivation is a spark, then I would go and say that um, the only thing that I can see that motivation um, kind of staying there for a really long time is if it becomes so, so strong that it can't be put down by any external factors. Okay. And how do we do that? Well, we create goddamn, wildfire out of that spark. Okay. If you have wildfire, it's really hard to extinguish it. Okay. So now, um, the second thing, the first thing is to just, tell yourself, okay, we're starting this, we want to do this, but let's stay real. Okay, it's gonna be tough, but we really want to do that. Okay, so the second thing is to make sure that you have something like a backup plan or at least a strategy of how to not only keep that spark alive, but to increase it so much, like enlarge it so much that when it comes time that all those negative things attack you, you can just say, okay, I'm free, because that spark is no longer a spark now, it's a fire just burning and really keeping me going forward. Okay, so how do we do that? I don't know. Okay, well, um, I it's something that I'm still struggling with, but the one thing that really, proved itself good enough would be discipline. Okay, so motivation is something that kind of brings us to start doing something. It enlights that fire within us. Okay, it inspires us. It forces us to move. It doesn't allow us to stay, still. We just have all that, energy or passion or ideas, and we just really, really, really have to do something with it. We have the will to move the mountains. Okay, that's motivation. But it doesn't last. Okay, maybe it will last for like a week to a month. Maybe it will last even, for 2 months. It all depends how harsh, the environment is towards that idea, let's call it that way. And, but it is inevitable that that motivation eventually will just, starting to drop. What happens when it starts to drop? Well, we give up. Okay, we no longer want to do that. We no longer feel happy about doing it. We just want to give up. Now, if you if there wasn't something that made you really happy about it in the first place, the motivation wouldn't even happen, at least not about that particular thing. The fact that you became motivated about a certain thing just shows us that you had some positive emotions about that thing in the first place. You just needed something to like put you in motion. Okay? So why would you let something go to waste just because things got hard? Just because you no longer feel all that, perhaps excitement, or, you don't feel so elated about it. Okay, so the thing that kind of steps in at that moment is discipline. So, discipline for me is knowing that I should be doing something because that is right and good for me. Okay, so I don't do things because at that point I feel like, wanting to do it, or I just feel, happy about it, or I don't even feel like doing it sometimes. Okay, I do it because I know it's good for me, and I know that, in a long term, I will have benefits out of doing it. So, I think it's very important to say that that doesn't mean that I'm disciplined all the time. Okay, sometimes you just wanna, wake up and stay in bed the whole. Sometimes you don't even wanna wake up. You just wanna sleep the whole day, and that's okay. Sometimes life gets difficult. Sometimes you're not in a very good place mentally, and it's okay. It's very important to again be very gentle with yourself and understand when to like make a pause and say, okay, you don't even have to wake up today. But then it's very important that you have that, a voice, or a figure, or, you personalize it, in whichever way you want. You have that something that will say, okay, now I let you like recover or relax or whatever you needed. I gave you whatever you needed for like 2 days, 3 days. Now it's time to get up and do something again. Do the things that should be done. Do the things that we have to do because it's good for us in the long term. Maybe we don't feel like doing it again or doing it right now or start doing it again, but it's something that will really, benefit us, in a year or in two or things like those. So discipline is that like voice of reason that steps in and says, okay, now let's again look at this objectively. So you don't feel that sort of you don't your emotions are not so high. Obviously your emotions are not going to drive you anymore when it comes to that. So let's see uh, what should we continue doing it, and what we should do next. So how do we do that? I make a plan, I make a strategy. Everything I start doing, I create like a business proposal for myself. Okay, so I write objectives, I write goals, even the timeline. I write all of it down. And then before I even started, okay, I'm so excited about something, but I get excited about a lot of things. That doesn't mean that I should start doing all those things, especially not at once. So how do I, differentiate what I want to do and what I don't want to do, or what I should do, even more importantly, and what I shouldn't? Well, you do that by literally putting things on paper. So what is something is just, I don't know, a spur of a moment, or if it's a real thing. Okay. And when you have that plan, like, okay, for example, I want to learn Swedish because of that and that. Okay. My goal is to, be that and that level in, that many months. And then my goal in the end, like the final goal is to, I don't know, get a certificate or move to Sweden or get a job or whatever it is. So I have all that written down, all that, all those feelings when I'm motivated, I put them on paper. All right. So once the motivation, you know, elapses, it's gone. I come back to that paper and I literally, check out things again, remind myself, okay, we're doing it because we want to really, like, for example, move to Sweden. All right. So we need to speak Swedish. We still want to do that, right? Maybe we don't want to do that at that moment, especially if we don't even want to like get out of bed. We obviously don't want to move anywhere. But let's say that, we are aware that it's our wish to move, I don't know, France or Italy, it doesn't matter. So you kind of, you remind yourself that there is something there. You put that picture somewhere in the future, okay? And now you see that goal and you know that there is something to be done. So you say yourself, okay, yes, we might not feel like this, like doing this right now. And um, maybe we don't see the results right now, but if we want to reach that goal and we know that we want because we wrote it in a paper, then we have to do this. Then this is the right thing to do. Okay, it's not easy. It takes, I'm a very stubborn person, so it takes a lot of persuading myself and um, a lot of negotiating with myself and a lot of, I don't know, just talking and be like, okay, we really have to do this, and then kind of just really pushing myself to do something, because for me it's really difficult. I don't know about you, but for me it's really difficult to get in motion. Okay, once I start doing something, it gets slightly easier, but it's really hard for me to just start moving. So once I do, things start to be slightly smoother. So I think that it's very important to develop um, discipline, to build discipline, because discipline is that one thing that's going to keep us going between that initial spark, which is motivation, the initial motivation, and the final destination, the end of that road. Okay, now I think I just forgot to mention, and I think we all, again, we've all been there. um, Motivation, the thing I really like about it, but kind of hate about it as well, is that it just, it rises and then it's gone, and then it rises again and it's gone again, and it rises again and it's gone again, and it's so frustrating. It always arises when you know, after you had that discipline part where you just literally had to like kick yourself out of bed to do something, and then when things start going well, the motivation is back and you're like, why are you back now? Why couldn't you be back when I didn't even want to start doing it? Like, that's when I needed you, that's when I would have such a huge use of you. Now I don't need you that much. So it kind of arises and like disappears again. And again, that's exactly why discipline is important, because it not only brings us from that initial, from that start, initial, uh, that beginning point of that journey to the end of it. It also like keeps us going from one motivation to the another one, to the third one, to the fourth one, until the end of the road. And I think that, the more disciplined you are, at least in my case, the quicker or the faster the motivation reappears. Okay, so I found that I become particularly motivating when I, get better at something. Which is kind of normal, but I never thought of motivation in that sense. But again, when I become more comfortable doing it or more confident doing something, motivation is again, it's back there. So when I, connect negative feelings towards something, that's when motivation seems to just disappear, vanish into thin air. And the discipline is something that forces us to go through that, quote unquote darkness, the dark part where we don't, you know even have we don't feel comfortable or good enough to just go through it until we again, um, kind of overcome that obstacle and get motivated again. Now, I'm not going to get so much into how to stay disciplined or how to be disciplined and everything else. I think it's probably going to be a separate episode, or a post on my Instagram profile, which you should totally check if you haven't yet. Um, but anyway, I do think that motivation and discipline is very much connected, and that, you know, you I don't think that you can reach your goal just, based just on, motivation alone. I think that you need to have something that will serve like a bridge between motivation, that very first feeling of, excitement and desire to change the world, right? Until that moment when you actually maybe not change the whole world, but at least change your own, which is the very important thing as well. Um, Now, I just want to make a quick, maybe not such a quick remark about discipline, but again, I won't get so much into it because I think it has material to be a very very separate episode. Um, when it comes to discipline, so I think it's, we are people and we are creatures of habit, and we're emotional creatures, and we have, feelings and needs, and it's expected that we will have our ups and downs. Okay, not every day will be exactly the same, or we will feel, as good as we felt yesterday, or things like that. So I think it's very important when it comes to that discipline part between two points, right? The beginning and the end of the journey. It's very important to be very selective and very smart about how we will apply that discipline. Okay. So I made, huge mistakes in the past. I still make them sometimes, not so much, but I still make them. So I would just be like, okay, so now I will like be, very disciplined in this and that and this and like 15 things at a time. And by the end of the week, um, I literally, suffered from a burnout, and I couldn't do a thing. So the one thing that I kind of learned to do is to not only be very selective about how many different things I will decide to be newly disciplined in, but also how much of a difference I would like to make. So whenever I would try to do something new, or I would try to improve some area of my life, I would want to go from like 12% to like 100% in a week. That doesn't happen. Okay, we all know it doesn't happen. I think that a lot of people, such as me, are, kind of like silly enough to believe that we are the one that can make it happen. But no, we're not. And it doesn't happen like that. So one thing that really helped me, um, stay disciplined, is kind of managing my expectations. So instead of wanting to, make 180, um, you know, in a week, I decided that in the next 3 to 6 months, I'm going to make an improvement of only 1% in each area. Okay. Or if I'm like, super inspired for, just one of it, I would focus on one area, all right? And then I would see all the like subcategories of that, main thing. And then I would improve all of them by 1% only. So it wouldn't be like, okay, so the discipline is on. Tomorrow you're waking up at 5 a.m. You're not eating sweets, God forbid. You will go to bed at 9 p.m. No phone except for work. No Netflix and chill, whatever it is, No. Now I like create, I do um, a very detailed analysis um, of my life, and of what's happening in my life at that moment. For example, right now I would say that I have a category like social life, like friends, relationships, and everything else. Family, I would have, business, I would have education, and I would have, I don't know, let's go physical category, which is like trainings and everything that I would like to improve when it comes to my physical well-being. Okay, so Obviously, the older me would be like, oh, I'm doing all of it at once. Like, I'm going to become Wonder Woman, by the end of the week. Right now, I just go and see which of it, which of these areas is the weakest. So, for example, right now, the weakest one is, I don't know, um, social life. Let's go like that. I don't think it is, but let's just go for the state of for the just for the example. So I won't focus on each of those, at once. I'll put all my focus on social life, and the rest of it I will improve for, just 1%. For example, physical well being, I will try to eat sweets like, you know, 3 times a week. For the education, I will try to dedicate 15 minutes to learning Spanish or learning Swedish. For the business, I will try to be consistent and to have at least 2 podcast episodes every month. Okay, so that's just 1% of each of those. But then, when because my focus is on the social category, I will see what everything gets in that category. For example, for social category, I have a family, I have friends, I have relationships or not, and I don't know, I have connections in the sense of a business world. Okay, so now I have these 4 connections. My job for the next 3 to 6 months would be to improve each of those category by 1 to 2%. That means that by the end of those 3 months, I will actually improve that category for 4 to 8%. Okay, so it's a huge improvement. I know it's not 100%, but again, it's, it is huge improvement because you will see the effects of each of those subcategories. But then again, you know, all parts of our lives are kind of intertwined. Okay, so we don't intertwined. So we don't have, um, if we improve one part of it, all right, it will kind of, transfer to the other part. So if I improve the connection subcategory, connection, business connections, then my business category will improve as well, passively, but it will improve as well. If I improve my, friends category, then perhaps my, I don't know, mental well-being or um, maybe even my physical health will improve because those friends that I, connected with live a very healthy lifestyle. If I do the family thing, then it can, improve my education because maybe we can all, like create a group and, support each other and do, learn together and, do the lessons together, whatever it is. The thing is that, what I think it's very important about discipline is not to like overspread. Okay, pick one thing. If you have so many different things and you feel like it's necessary to work on all of those things, you know, at the same time immediately, then do it. But be careful about the amount of energy you have. You don't have unlimited, source of energy. It's kind of very limited, honestly, because now the life is very fast and we, spend our energy to things that we wouldn't even think about spending, a decade ago. So we need to be very, maybe not so careful, but we need to be smart when it comes to how we spend our energy, how we like, it's a resource. So we need to, kind of think and calculate how we're going to spend that resource. Okay. Um, and that's what I'm trying to say. So if everything is important and you feel like you'll be really sort of damaged um, if you don't work on all those things at the same time, okay, then put 1% for the whole category, okay, and pick one that's like, the most endangered, okay, and that one you kind of dissect and then work on each of those. But just by 1%. If you have more energy than you need, then you can always, like, put it in a second speed. But don't force yourself to do it because discipline is about being persistent and doing every day something that will make you, closer to your goal. Okay, it's not it's like a marathon, it's not a sprint. So if you waste all your energy at once, it's really not, it just can't, it can't be sustained. Okay, so that's why I say, again, I'm not gonna like dive any longer into it, but just be very careful. So you need, motivation is a starter, discipline is like, transportation, but like a car needs gas, you also need, your own fuel. And if you spend all that at once, you're gonna have a huge problem. Okay, so now that I've covered those two things, I would actually like to come to the practical part and share some motivational tips that I kind of um, not figured out, but I read about them, I heard about them, I tested them, and they seem to be kind of working for me. Again, I do struggle with motivation most of the time. For me, the discipline is, the beginning and the end of every story. So I think that I don't rely so much on motivation in that sense, but we do need it because that's where our passion lies. So I think that um, these things that I will mention in a few seconds are the things that really kind of help me going, and just really maybe not reaching the end of the road, but they kept me on the road for a longer time than I predicted, honestly. So the first thing that I would say is that the one thing that really helps me is to set like so many reminders around me. I don't mean like post-it note or things like those. I mean everything that was an initial reason to do something, to start something, to even begin with that is um, the reason, like it's why you started doing it in the first place. Okay, all those reasons that um, kind of brought you um, to that very point where you, at the moment when the motivation elapsed, uh, it's also the moment where um, you still have those reasons. Let's put it that way. Um, for example, it's much easier for me to talk in examples than just theoretical, so I will go with the example. So I want to, I don't know, um, learn Spanish. Let's go with Spanish this time. So, my original reasons for it is I knew a bit of Spanish when I was a kid. I was exposed to Spanish and Spanish culture to a certain extent. I really love the sound of Spanish. Spain is a beautiful country, and I would like to visit it and be able to communicate with people who live there. I also would like to read Spanish books in the original. Okay, so all those things were the reason why I really wanted to master Spanish language, including the fact that it's, I think, one of the five top spoken languages, most spoken languages in the world. So maybe it's slightly different now, maybe it's six, but it's very vast, it's very spoken in the world. So all those things, such as exposure to culture and meeting new people and traveling and the literature, they were my reason why that kind of that wish for learning Spanish um, arose in the first place. Now the motivation came when, I don't know, I got into college and could choose to study Spanish, okay, or when I saw, I don't know, Ricky Martin's new music video and I was like, oh, okay, now I'm doing it again, or any of those, it doesn't matter. The thing is that those things which made me choose it in the first place are there even when I no longer want to go and learn Spanish in the sense of sitting, doing homework. I just don't feel like doing it. I want to watch a new TV show, or I just want to watch a movie again, or I want to do nothing. Okay. So in that moment, for me, it's very important to have, around me to a certain extent, all those things why I chose to do it in the first place. So every time I look at it, I either feel bad enough not to do it, because then, it feels like failing yourself, or I actually, remember the initial feeling of warmth and happiness when I was doing it. And then I just act on that sort of memory. Okay. But I think that putting all those reminders around you is a very, very good way to just, um, maybe not keep you motivated, but just like, the name says, remind you that, um, there was time when you felt very happy about it, and you probably still do feel happy about it, maybe not right now, but it's probably just a phase. Now, again, just want to say something before I move to the second one. It's very important to make a difference between a phase when you don't feel like doing something, and when you just really don't want to do that anymore, when you just outgrown it, or your interest switched or something like that. If it lasts for a while and it really becomes difficult for you to do it, then it's probably the latter one. Okay, it's probably not a phase, and you shouldn't, like punish you or just torture you, you know, by doing something that you really don't want to do. However, if you see that it's on and off and it always lasts for a couple of days, a week tops, then you just kind of go through that week and then you're back, in the game again. So the second thing that I tried, it didn't really work that much for me. But then again, I'm not really a type that, I do write, but I get way more emotionally connected when I hear or see things than when I read, at least when I write to myself. But I read this somewhere and it said that you should, when you're feeling motivated, just like write a letter or an essay or something like that to yourself in the future, about how you feel at that moment. Like write about all the happiness and all the, you know, um, excitement and everything that's like, you know, forcing you to do that. Okay, all that motivation that you feel, put it on paper, write all of it. Try to um, transfer as much as emotions as you can. Um, Try to write, you know, feelings and how you feel when you do it, and how you can't wait to do it again, and about the process, and all of it in details. Put it all on the paper and put it away. Okay, the motivation, like we said, is going to go away, but thing that is going to stay is that letter. So again, this didn't really work for me, but maybe you'll be, maybe you're the luckier than I am. So when the motivation disappears and you have, hard time staying disciplined and doing it all over again until the motivation arrives again, try to read that letter. Try to remember all those emotions and all that excitement, and really try to relive that situation when you were writing letter. Sometimes our brain kind of creates those memory paths that we can sort of not really activate, but we can really relive the situation again, and including the emotions that we felt. And if you, again, if that works for you, you might be you might be able to kind of rework the whole experience of feeling motivated again, at least for a small amount of time, which will be enough for you to just, put you through the next 2 or 3 days, or, maybe even a week. It all depends. It all depends what type of person you are. So the next thing that I would say is very important when it comes to, motivation and being motivated is the environment you're in. So, from my experience, it's much harder to stay motivated when I'm surrounded by people who are prone to drink not so much with their day. Oh, that sounds a bit weird. Okay, so when I am surrounded by people who do what they have to and nothing more than that, and then really enjoy spending time relaxing, and you choose to, relax most of the day, or do, don't have such an amount of discipline in their life as I like to have, or at that point I do have. It all depends what we're talking about. Then I found that since discipline doesn't come so natural to me, and I really have to work hard to have it, I found that I do tend to not just like start slacking, but I very much join the club of, not such an active people. And so if people around me are not active, and I don't mean just in physical sense, I also mean like intellectual, or, whichever, it doesn't matter. If there are people who really relax, it's really hard for you. It's like, everyone eating ice cream, and then you should be the one that doesn't eat. Okay, maybe you won't eat it the first day, maybe you won't eat it the second day or the third day, but like after a week, you'll be like, damn it, I'm gonna like just give me like a scoop or a five. It doesn't matter. Well, the same thing is with this. So if you are surrounded by people who are not as, active or as disciplined or as motivated as you are, it's very likely that they will just pull you down with them. And um, that's why, that's why it's very important to be careful about the environment you're in. If you take a pause and just like take a vacation or something, then it's okay. But if you're really um, like in that working mode, in that, you're working or developing or whatever it is, um, it's very important to be surrounded by, people who are like you, because their energy and their motivation, and, seeing them doing it, they will kind of pull you with them. And, you will just not, perhaps maybe being forced is not the right thing to say, but you will kind of, be forced to keep up with them. But if you're with someone who is not on the same, wavelength as you are, then there is a huge chance that you'll just like, get back to the previous mode, which is the mode that didn't get you to where you are at the moment. So the environment is very, very important. And that's why I say that for the learning a language, study groups, or learning anything, basically, study groups, or um, group classes, or any of those, they can be any sort of support system, or system where all of you are going through the same and fighting for the same thing. That can be very, very stimulating, because the environment can either, brings us up or really drag us down. So, it's entirely up to you to choose which part, in which group you're going to be. But the thing is that, yeah, people that surround us have a huge effect, not only on us, but also um, on, our lives, and on what we do, and what the final results of our actions, is going to be. So the fourth thing, I think it's fourth. Yes, it's fourth thing. I'm checking on a paper. So the fourth thing that I would like to say is that you should have a schedule. Okay, so um, when I don't feel really motivated to do anything, I find so many different things to do instead of doing what I should be doing, but I don't feel like doing. So, for example, I have an exam coming up. I think my house is never cleaner than in the period before the exam, because everything, even cleaning, which I really don't like doing, is better than, studying something I'm not interested in. Now, the subjects that really interest me, they're okay. But when supposed to learn something that you're not such a huge fan of, then even cleaning seems like a really, really good option. So the way that I prevent it is that I create a very, very specific schedule. Now, that doesn't mean that I have, you know, completely like, that I full my day from the beginning to the end. Like I don't, I still leave some, time blocks empty, because it's very important to, have some sort of freedom to, like, switch to things in a day, or just take a rest, or not feel so overwhelmed by your schedule, tight schedule. uh, but to have some structure, it's, from a crucial it's a crucial thing for me. I need to have structure in my life, and that structure really helps my discipline keep me going. So I, for example, create, I get up in that, then I will do this, I will learn this, I will have this lesson, then the work, and etc. So maybe, I will probably have empty spaces in my schedule, but the main things that I have to do is on the list. Okay, it's right there on that paper, and I'm staring at it. And I just really, that's that 1% that I'm talking about. That's my 1% of that day, to really do everything that's on the list. Again, that's why it's very important not to overwhelm your schedule, but to leave some empty space. Um, but again, it's um, it's very important to be honest with yourself and just be like, okay, listen, maybe we don't want to do this, but, let's just stick with it. Even if you don't do all, things that you were supposed to do that day, it's okay. You don't have to do all of it. What you should do is give 100% of you. If that 100% is maybe 50% that day, that's still okay. But then give all 50% that you have. Don't give like 30%. Give 100% of the amount of energy that you have that day, and that should be perfectly okay. Okay, so schedule, look at it, and try to check every single thing that you have on that list, and make sure that the list is not like 20 things in a day, like I did before, but like, uh, be, realistic, and really like prioritize things. So I have to do these three things, and the rest is, if I can, if I can't, it's okay. And be gentle with yourself again, which brings us to the next thing, and that is to keep a diary. No, it doesn't have to be like dear diary, but keep, have a notebook where you will actually like keep record of everything you did. So, for example, if, I don't know, if I have, a mandatory training every day, and, like 15 minutes of, I don't know, Spanish, then I will, keep a diary, like where I will just check every day when I've done it. Okay. So when I again don't feel, like doing it, and I'm like, maybe today's the day when I should skip it, I look at that paper, or, in computer, or in a diary itself, and I see like all those days that I've already did it. Okay. And then, I feel bad about like throwing the streak. Like I've done it for 40 days now. So will I really like, you know, stop it now? Like it's 40 days. So 40 days doesn't seem, like much. But for example, I'm doing Duolingo and I'm practicing Spanish there, and I have like over 1,000 days now. So even though I feel like, I feel really, terrible, and I don't want to do anything, I look at that poor dude, and I just look at him, and he tells me that, I'm like, today is my, 1,000 and I don't know, 77th or 8th day. And how can I destroy all those days, for something that can be done in 15 minutes? It doesn't mean that I will like do two practices in a day, or I will even give, the 100% that I might give, few days ago. But I will do the best I can, because all those, like, I have a constant reminder in a very visual way of all those times when I, um, kind of stayed persistent and really, um, you know gave my best to do it. And now, you look at it, and you just, maybe it doesn't motivate you, but it kind of prevents you from ruining the streak. That's all I'm going to say. Now, maybe it won't work for you, but I'm a huge, I just, I'm slightly sentimental, so I wouldn't feel very nice if Duo would be very upset with me, and if I would lose it. So, that's why it works for me. But if, if you're not learning a language, something, try to find maybe an app if it helps, or maybe something where you can, partner with someone, like you and your friends. I think there are a lot of, if it's a fitness, there are a lot of like walking apps where you can walk with your friend, and then you can stimulate each other, and you're like collecting days, like streaks. And it's, it's kind of stimulating for myself to just see how far I've come. It, brings me sort of enough energy at least to do it that one more day. And that's all I have to do in the end. I don't have to do the next year. I just have to do that one single day each day. And tomorrow again, I will have to do just one day. So when you start seeing all those things as, one day at a time, I think it really, helps and kind of pushes you through that, resistance that you might feel at that moment. And the last thing that I would like to say, and then I'll be finishing. This is lasting way longer than I planned in the first place. But the last thing that I would like to mention is um, to, you know, keep reminding yourself that everything you do is a part of a bigger picture. So I said it in the very beginning, and I'm saying it again. So if my goal is to move, what I said, to Sweden, I think, or let's go to Italy. Let's move again. So if my goal is to move to Italy, I see that goal, and it's so so far away. But learning Italian, for example, is, one step toward that goal. And even though that one day maybe means nothing, if I keep repeating, doing nothing every day, then it's going to be a lot of nothings, and in a month it's going to be an empty month. But if every day I do 15 minutes, then you have like 30 days of 15 minutes, which is not so much minutes, but it's much more than nothing. Okay. And that 1 month of doing it is definitely like one step towards, the that initial goal of moving to Italy. So even though that one day means nothing, when you collect a load of those days, and look at them as a whole, it makes a difference. And even though just learning English, learning Italian is not, itself such a huge deal, uh, it's also just, one step towards that final thing. The other may be finding a job, or like specializing in something, or whatever it is. But if you lack that one thing, it will affect the bigger picture in the end. So just keep that, try to see it, as a whole. Maybe I'm doing only one piece right now, and maybe it feels like that one piece doesn't matter, or is not as important as you know, um, as I, well, feel, or maybe not feel at that moment. But it is the necessary piece in the whole puzzle. Okay, and for me to see that whole picture in the end and to complete the puzzle, that one piece is very much required. So each one of those things, whenever you feel like you don't want to do it, just think, okay, no, this is that one piece that I do have to do, and I will need it in the end. And if I don't do it now, maybe it won't be so easy to do it later. And maybe I can't complete this part of the puzzle without that one piece. So why should I sacrifice the whole picture for that one piece? If I can do that one piece, you know, by just pushing, through today, or just, focusing for 15 minutes per day, or even for an hour, it doesn't matter. Like, if you really, really want that puzzle, I think it's very much worth the sacrifice, because at that point, it's not a sacrifice. It's just a tool or a process that you have to go through to, complete and finish that puzzle, and that you can really enjoy in a success that you kind of accomplished at that moment. So, yeah, this was way longer than I thought, but I hope that you enjoyed. So, I would like to hear from you. What do you do to stay motivated? How you keep yourself motivated, or how do you even become motivated in the first place? What are the things that you struggle with. Um, do you even struggle with motivation? There are people who are naturally motivated, and I really envy those people. What about the discipline? Do you think discipline and motivation are connected? So, whichever thoughts you have about this, feel free to let me know. You can always send me, an email. You have my email address below. Um, or if nothing else, you can always leave me a comment, or you can find me on Instagram or any of those. Uh, you have a load of links below. So I would really like to hear your thoughts. I would really like to hear some of your tips or some of your, ways that are proven to be successful that might help me or someone else as well. Um, so let me know uh, whether you enjoyed it, what do you think, and I'll see you next time.